Welcome to Entrepreneurial Reality with Bash. Every week we'll be speaking to startup and scale-up founders to learn about them, their ambitions for the business, goals and objectives. Every conversation is a moment in time, documenting entrepreneurs' current situation with a view to coming back next year to see how they are getting on. Each journey will be different. Each innovation could be game-changing. I hope you enjoy. Entrepreneurial Reality with Bash, Series 1, Episode 20. And I have with me the co-founder and CEO of Wishwallet, Marc Labbett. Welcome, Marc.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So for the benefit of the listeners, could you bring us up to speed as to your journey to date?
A little over 2 years ago, I was living in Florida. I moved out there with my family where I was offered a partnership opportunity in a management consultancy firm. It was a great opportunity to get involved in something different after 10 years in container shipping. So I moved into a new firm with an old college roommate of mine. We went into management consultancy for a variety of clients in Florida, ranging from medical labs to engineering tool startups to medical conferences. And while we were over there, in a sort of spontaneous moment, the Wishwallet concept came about. There were three of us over there, my wife, Abby, and my friend and business partner, Drew Wilson. And just a moment where we realized that there was a bit of a gap in the market with the way people manage their spare change and what it is that they do with it. For the past, I've had a money jar sitting in my room or in my kitchen, and it was always a habit to get home at the end of the day or end of the week and just empty that pocket of change into the coin jar. And then just somebody piped up, oh, there's an app for that. And then that just kind of got us to thinking, well, an app for what? For capturing change? For what? So, within a couple of hours of digging around, we came across like concepts such as Moneybox and Acorns. Acorns is essentially the American version of Moneybox. So automatically rounding up your spare change or your spend, and then putting that towards something, whether it's an investment into stocks and shares or diverting money directly into your savings account. We always thought that it would be handy to have a mechanism that would help people buy the things that they really value, that they believe really brings a sense of life enrichment. There's a huge amount of pressure, I think, from the market to buy things, and whether it's unnecessary or unneeded, that's one thing. But it's also on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who would really like to have, say, those designer pair of trainers, but with a modicum of financial sense, they decide, right, I'm not going to max out another credit card, or I'm not going to overspend this month and get myself into further financial trouble. So I'm not going to go and buy it. With Wishwallet, we want that to change. We want to offer people a way that they can afford the things that they really want, they believe brings value to their lives, whether it's a pair of trainers or a meal for two at a Michelin restaurant, next year's travel package holiday, or even a contribution to a charity or your child's school PTA. Why not have a mechanism in place that automates both the rounding up of your everyday spending, and then secondly, automates that transactional process where you don't have to get involved in any way. All you do is go into the app, pick what it is that you want to buy down the road, and then go about your daily life. So we're essentially automating the roundup and the purchase, which is a totally unique and innovative perspective on e-commerce, which if you put it as simply as an e-commerce platform that is supported and enabled by fintech, the technology behind it would essentially be completely frictionless and enable users to essentially gain a greater sense of spending power. But more importantly, there's also the belief that it can help people reduce their risk of further debt. I saw an article that came out today that the average household debt is a little over £15,000, excluding mortgages. And bearing in mind that it was about £8,000 last year, there's clearly a negative trend that a lot of people need to be very aware of. And Wishwallet is there to essentially help people realize their purchasing goals and dreams without overexposing them to overspending, getting into further debt, and just exacerbating a situation the government faces with helping these people who are just putting the country into further trouble by very simple methodology of rounding up your everyday spends and getting the things that you want. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a materialistic purchase. It could be a contribution to your kids' school, to better their education, a contribution to charity. So whatever it is, we believe that the Wishwallet can really help make a difference to the way people shop and save online.
It certainly sounds interesting. And could you tell us a bit more about where that money is then held? And do the users have the ability to allocate that money over time, or is it held in sort of escrow for a period of time before you release it?
The concept behind Wishwallet, one of the main USPs is that users pre-select their purchases. So whether it's a pair of trainers or a restaurant or a hotel, through different setting options, the users will have the option to choose how their funds are allocated. So for example, if they've got 3 purchases on their dashboard, they can tell Wishwallet to say, right, I just want to pay off the first one until I've bought it and then move on to the second. Or it can be sequential 1, 2, 3, or it can be completely random. We're working with third-party providers in the background. All those roundups that are captured over a single week. An additional direct debit mandate is sent out to the user. 1 extra withdrawal from the account is then transferred into a virtual account, and those funds just passively accrue in the background as people go about their lives. We're also going to be integrating safety features to make sure that people don't get into trouble. So, for example, users will be able to select, say, their bank balance, and if at the time of the direct debit mandate their bank balance is below that pre-select number, the direct debit will pause, because if they need their balance to be at a certain amount to cover rent and bills and things like that, the last thing that we want to do is to go and get people into trouble because of an additional direct debit that they can't necessarily afford. And then similarly, if people have, say, £350 sitting in their Wishwallet and something happens at the house and the boiler explodes and they need that money, they are more than able to withdraw that full amount free of charge. We're looking to partner up with some machine learning experts so that we can offer users an insight into their spending habits, their saving habits, and really give them a clearer picture of what it is that they can afford, and similarly help them with just managing their day-to-day finances. It is in no way designed to reap benefit by just positioning people into spending more than they can afford. We want this to be the third hand in people's financial lives when they come to making spending decisions, whether it's small ones or large ones. With that machine learning and that data and that insight, we want to work with a variety of partners so that a huge amount of information can be gathered and analyzed and then presented in a way that helps the user gain a greater sense of where they stand in space. There's so many transactions flying around. I know that there are numerous different service providers that do things similarly, but that will be part of our service offering. How
well progressed are you in terms of the technology development?
So I partnered up with a app development firm up in Bedford called Tappable. We got together sort of around the middle of last year. We just clicked instantly. They recognized the potential for this. About 3 months to our agreement, they agreed to make an investment into Wishwallet prior to my crowdfunding campaign, which would enable sort of 3 months worth of design and wireframing, and also the first round of the actual app itself. The idea behind that being that we knew that the crowdfunding campaign was going to be 1, possibly 2 months. And then once Crowdcube do their due diligence, you're looking at another month. By the time the funds clear, we'll already be 3 months ahead of design, with the goal of launching in April, May of this year.
You mentioned the crowdfunding campaign. Is that currently going on?
Yeah, so we're currently live on Crowdcube at the moment. At this point, we've got 14 days remaining. We've got a target of £215,000. We are offering 20% equity in return. And so far, we've raised a little over £114,000 with 116 investors. So, there's still work to be done. We're still looking to obviously reach that target with an overfunding target of 300. And with that, we're looking to move into the final development stage of the live app, and then that will also have funds allocated for 6 months of app support ongoing, a marketing and PR campaign, and key hires. And
for the listeners, please, this is not a recommendation. Please make your own research and take advice on investing. But take a look at Crowdcube, take a look at the disclaimers associated with that. But if you're interested, that's where you can find Marc, or go direct to Marc to answer any questions that you may have. You've got the application that is in development. You have a funding round going on at the moment. You mentioned that you were in management consulting and moved into building an application. You had that aha moment. What gave you the courage then to take that step, that leap of faith in the first place?
It's just a value to so many principles of life that just can't be ignored. At the beginning, we really have something interesting, and over time, the more we spoke to potential users and retailers and collaborators and partners, so far to date, we have yet to actually get any negative feedback. Everybody has been able to say, I understand it. I can see how that is really going to, make a difference and have an impact, benefit people, and to that end, it was a case of, right, we need to really make this work. So I was in a position where, with 3 kids at home, I could come back and look after them and get this up and running at the same time. My wife works in the city, so we've got a good sort of life work balance. Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things that we just felt if we didn't do anything about it, it would just be a great shame. So I worked with some crowdfunding consultants for a couple of months to get the whole campaign and strategy in place. Yeah, now we're live and crowdfunding, and we're at that point where we're on the verge of making this a reality. With the plan of launching into the UK and then expanding into Europe and beyond. And yeah, I mean, it was a risk, and it's cost some money. I'm not going to lie, but the belief and the passion in what this can really do to people's lives in the most positive way is something that we couldn't ignore and let it go. So yeah, here we are.
No, I appreciate it, and it's certainly exciting to see somebody so passionate about delivering value to people and enabling them to make adjustments to their financial outcomes as a result of spending, which is interesting.
That's the key point. It's that adjustment. That mindset of realizing what it is that you can actually afford with a little bit of patience and an adjusted sense of responsibility. Rather than going out and overusing credit cards and overextending. It's far too easy to fall into a life of overspending and maybe trying to live up to the expectations. But we believe that there's also surprisingly within the millennials of this age, there is a huge amount of financial restraint. Especially with that age group who have grown up maybe with their parents or relatives who really struggled over the past 10 years. So whilst a lot of broad strokes seem to get put out there with the millennials being the want it now generation. We believe that there are also those who are the complete opposite, and they recognize the risks that are out there. They don't go and overspend. They don't go and buy it now just because people think it's the cool thing to have the best pair of trainers or to eat at this restaurant or to travel to this particular place. People are a lot more cautious. They have the benefit of hindsight, and they're really able to capitalize on that and make smart, sensible, informed decisions. And Wishwallet will help them do that. And also for those who are still in that want it now mindset, that adjustment with Wishwallet can be brought about.
Very interesting indeed. So is there any particular learning that you could share with the listeners?
I think for me, what's proved most successful so far is just recognizing the weak spots. I don't know everything. I never will. But being able to look at myself and my team and recognize, over the last 15 years, the skills and the contacts and the relationships that we have in place, and to then look forward and say, right, what do we need? Who do we need to get to the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And then go about whether it's, nurturing friendships or old relationships or even establishing new ones. That has really kind of become a cornerstone of our remit in terms of establishing something that really has a solid infrastructure is the people that we work with. We wanted to work with an app developer who had the experience, and we also get together quite regularly, and we all get on really, really well. So, that type of relationship, given that we could be working together for the next 10 years, was a critical component. Similarly with our marketing team, we did some work on some different projects last year, and that was just a no-brainer. They had an incredible team at Kemp Marketing, and they were really able to support the vision of Wishwallet. And then similarly, we took on some advisors who had the expertise in the necessary sectors of industry that we wanted to tap into. So I think that's been the main thing is just recognizing where we were a little bit short, and then reaching out to the people who are the best at what it is that they do, bringing them on board and strengthening it from the ground up, and making it as solid and as stable as possible, so that as we extend and we grow, we have that framework, that infrastructure that is really going to hopefully take us as far as this can go.
Having the right people is one thing, but being able to accept some of the ideas that come across from these people as well is another. As some founders are very protective of their ideas, and this is the way they're going to go, this is the vision, the people around to facilitate that realization of vision. But sometimes there are ideas put on the table that may complement what you're looking to achieve and add further depth. How do you address these ideas? How do you manage that collaboration when you have a very clear focus as a founder?
With difficulty, to be honest, there are definitely some conflicting ideas. Like you said, I have a vision of how I see this panning out, and when one of the team members has something that is not kind of in line, or whether it's in complete contradiction, it's a challenge because it's not how I want it to go or how I see it going. That typically becomes a good discussion. I have to step back and remember these people are the experts in their field, whether it's a short-term play or a long-term strategy. These are the people that we have chosen to bring on board for their expertise, with their 15, 20, 25 years in their relevant sectors. It's never easy. We'll compromise and we might disagree, but at the end of the day, we all have the same interests at heart. We want this to get developed and launch and move out into the market and succeed for our users and partners and things like that. So it's a challenge, and one that I kind of enjoy, in a weird way, But I think it brings out the best in our negotiational skills. Challenge of character is always a good thing, and I think as a team, and as people individually, it just makes us stronger.
And so you covered off a number of activities across the next 12 months, such as finishing the round of funding sort of mid to late January. You've got then the launch of the developed product, the first version mid-year. And then what else do you plan to achieve across these next 12 months?
After launch, we'd be looking to really focus on the UK market, starting in the Southeast and London region, and really consolidate that feedback, especially from the users, about how the app works, what they like, what they don't like. I think that's going to be a really large portion of the next 6 months following launch. And then it will be a case of implementing various upgrade programs, increasing functionality. And, we want to diversify our product offering for things that people are able to pre-select as purchases. At the beginning, we'd love to have as diverse a range as possible. It's not realistic to say that we're going to be able to offer everything that you can buy online through Wishwallet. That's not going to happen. But in time, there's no reason to think that with the support of our key hires and partnerships, we can push this out through the rest of the UK and then Europe. So within a year of launch, we'd like to see this really established in the UK, on the verge of an expansion into Europe and Scandinavia, and then North America after that, and beyond.
So the current political climate is not a concern for you. It's still part of your strategy to grow and scale internationally, irrespective of what happens.
It is presenting a challenge, not so much for me, but for other people who are considering getting involved. At the end of the day, people are always going to be looking for ways to realize purchasing goals. People are always going to be spending money and investing and things like that. But I mean, as far as Wishwallet itself is concerned, the core functionality will remain consistent, irrespective of what happens in a couple of months. With
the focus of continual learning and sharing, is there any particular recommended reading that's helped your education, your understanding that you could share? So
I recently was reading The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell. He shed some really interesting perspective about context and content, word of mouth, I think, being one of the main ones. And it was something that was kind of reiterated when I was at the FinTech Connect exhibition a couple of weeks back. And it was just a case of having those connections and those collaborations who recognize the value and the potential of something and are more than willing to recommend it to their colleagues and partners and peers and things like that. So it's definitely become a huge part of the sort of the brand awareness strategy. If I'm able to establish 100 brand ambassadors who are able to scream from the roof of their buildings about Wishwallet currently, and what it is that we're trying to achieve right now in terms of not just raising the initial seed capital to build it, but also how it can really benefit retailers as an additional revenue stream, as a source of customers, brand exposure, and similarly for charities and schools. I'm really looking to work with, starting off with my girls' school on a local level, but then they fall out under the umbrella of the GLF, which is a community of primary schools and colleges. With that sort of mindset, we're really looking to roll this out locally with not just word of mouth, but in the right context and with the right value. We believe it has the real potential to reach people on a huge variety of different levels, way in advance of actually us connecting with them personally, purely based on the way that it can benefit such a broad variety of people. Having that context in place, and that content, of course, has really proved itself already.
Excellent. And the intention from a technical perspective it's going to be available on every device? Could you just give us a steer on that?
Yeah, so we didn't want to limit it to Apple or Android or anything like that. So the app developers, and they also supported that approach, making it available on all devices. We'll also have a website that will be dedicated to each individual user, so that they can manage their own dashboards on a website if they want to. We recognize that a huge amount of time is spent on the mobile phone. Sometimes it's nice just to be on the laptop or to be on the desktop, have that large screen while you're at home. And the same thing will apply to our retail partners and service providers. They will have a web-based dashboard that will be offering them the insight into their users, their customers, and offer them a platform essentially, and a tool for them to increase their exposure, gain additional sales, and be able to really focus in on the people who they know are in the mindset of buying whatever it is they're offering.
That's great. And in terms of volume of transactions, just rough estimation, how many do you need to achieve net profitability?
So based on our current financial projections and the business model that we've implemented, we're looking at approximately 250,000 transactions by the end of the first year, which will take us into profitability by around month 16 or 17. And then transaction counts by the end of year 2, we're anticipating about 1.1 to 1.2 million. And then 3 to 3.5 million transactions by the end of year 3.
Let's learn a bit more about you as an individual. There are people in this world that I look up to personally, influencers, business owners, philanthropists that I believe are doing great work. Are there any particular individuals that you look up to or you aspire to be?
Richard Branson has always approached work and life in a way that has always inspired me to find that balance with his with his dedication to kite surfing, which is something that I dabbled in a little bit with while we were living in Florida. He has a balance. I think that a lot of people should really strive towards, in terms of not getting too consumed by one or the other, being able to really recognize the value in people. And I'll never forget one of his quotes being something to the effect of, always hire people smarter than you, bringing the best out of everybody that you're working with, that you're surrounded by, not trying to lead with an iron fist or anything like that, but be flexible to the other experts in the room who complement, rather than contradict or might be too impractical. So, for me, he has just a business style that's, as far as I'm aware, is not really mirrored by anybody else. And whether they're in a small startup phase like myself or a multinational, I don't see that mindset anywhere else. And just the way that he's managed to recognize some patterns and some trends, and obviously he also create some new ones for himself. I'm not anticipating becoming a multi-billionaire and own my own island. But I would definitely take from what he does, the passion that he has, in everything that he does, both in life and at home. And I've read most of his books and seen various interviews and and all that kind of stuff. And he's all over social media, so it's quite intriguing to see how he's willing to keep himself feet firmly planted on the ground whilst flying in space at the same time. I take a huge amount of value from that.
A very inspirational person, yes. And you mentioned that you dabbled a little bit of kite surfing. Are there any other sort of sporting activities or anything else that helps you get away from the busyness of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I cycle a lot. I joined a mountain biking club here in Reigate in Surrey. So there's about 15 of us. Twice a week, we usually go out Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings. That's my opportunity to get away from it all, get my adrenaline rush, and just clear my head of whatever kind of week I've had, whether it's been a good week or a setback week or even a non-week sometimes. And then when the weather's rubbish, I've got an indoor sort of turbo trainer set up, so that I can still get the heart racing a little bit, keep that. It just helps me sort of stay focused. And then with I've got three very young girls, who are all at school. So that's also another juggling act with the kids as well. So yeah, for me that cycling component. If I wasn't able to do that, that would be a real struggle, just to spin the legs and clear the mind.
And in terms of working with your wife, how do you balance that with the children as well over the dinner table? Do you find yourself falling into having conversations about business and ideas and what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Abby will come home from work and she's had a conversation with a friend or a client or something's come up somewhere, and she'll bring that back to the house, and we'll talk about how it can be implemented into the Wishwallet strategy. And then similarly, if I've been on the phone all day and had various conversations with investors or retailers or collaborators or my marketing firm, whatever it might be, of course it comes up over the dinner table or on the weekends. It's just it's part of the everyday. So obviously timing with the kids is difficult, but we just have to always remember that there is a time and a place, and the time for the kids is their time, and we spend as much time as we can with them, and then when it's either just the two of us, or if everyone's at work, it's a case of finding that time. But at the end of the day, having left my city job over a year ago, and me focusing on Wishwallet, if I wasn't talking about it with my wife every hour of every day, who knows where it would be.
Good point. Time has flown. Thank you. It'd be great for you to come back and share with us in 12 months' time the ups and downs that you've experienced to date, and then your view for the next 12 months. Would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Great. There is a question I do like asking every entrepreneur, and hopefully the response is different every year. And that is, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
I think I would have spent less time on my business plan. I got quite consumed by having an all singing, all dancing, fully informed business plan that I felt I needed to have sitting on my computer in case somebody asked for it. And in the end, I found out that what people actually just wanted was a 6-page, broad strokes. This is the plan. This is the vision. This is how it's going to work, and this is how it's going to make money. And this is what's going to happen. So, I mean, I wouldn't call it a huge waste of time, but it did become quite consuming for several months, possibly even longer. To have a document that really laid it all out, which I've never sent out. So I think whilst it is an important thing, it's also something that is continually evolving. And I go back to my business plan probably once a month, and I make some tweaks and I make some adjustments, and then it sits on my computer for another month. I think for people to get caught up in having something like that, even when it comes to pitching a VC, or a bank or a potential investor, a 35-page business plan is, in my experience, not necessary.
Interesting. It does ask pertinent questions of you to understand your market, the growth plan, provide sort of early stage targets to achieve a profitable, sustainable business.
Yeah,
making sure it's a viable idea in the first place. But I really do hear you doing and learning as you grow, and reiterate and make sure you learn from your mistakes.
Well, what you said there about, identifying the potential and, recognizing where the target market is, where the value is, how you can recognize the return on investment, if that's what you're going for, then of course. But, I should have done that first, rather than starting at the beginning, with an executive summary and then an introduction, and then I would go to digging into the numbers first, establishing that marketing plan, and kind of in a weird way working backwards through it. But about 3 months ago, I think I narrowed my business plan from 35 pages down to 6. And then when I did send it out, I sent it out to an investor who then became an advisor to us, and he didn't say anything. He never mentioned the fact that it was 6 pages. At the end of the day, it was just a highly condensed version, which you're probably not going to get if you don't have anything to condense in the first place. That's all they want to know. It's how are they going to make their money back, or if it's an equity. If it's an equity position, then how are they, or when are they going to see their returns, and what's the plan to get there? If it's a 3 to 5 year strategy, so it's always a difficult one. And I wouldn't recommend that to say that that's the best approach for everybody and anybody who's looking to pitch VCs or potential investors and stuff like that. But in my experience, it has been the case.
Well, Marc, we're out of time. Thank you so much for your insights and sharing what you're doing with regards to Wishwallet and the value and benefit you could deliver to many people who are in the process of purchasing items, and whether they're digital or physical products and services. So I wish you every success moving forward.
Thank you very much.
And look forward to coming back next year and learning how the journey's gone to date.
Yeah, me too.
So what do you think? We'll have another interesting story to dive into next week. Looking forward to it already. Some questions to you in the meantime. What is your story? What is your reality right now? And what are you working towards? Let me know. So you can connect with me on Twitter. Just type in Bash in the search and you'll find me. So Bash, B-A-S-H. Easy. On Instagram, it's Bash Reality. So that's Bash_reality. And on LinkedIn, Benjamin Ashmore. Make sure you subscribe, and until next week, cheers.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.